hopefully we'll be able to answer those questions. So Sam, it is 5:59. The clock is ticking towards 6. So why don't you take over? Sam Rhodes.
Marla, thank you very, very much. Welcome to a PIDC-sponsored webinar. I'd really like to thank Marla for pulling this together in short order, together with my colleagues Quinn and Jasmine, who've done a terrific job. And we couldn't be more thrilled to be joined by Constance Anderson of Lendistry to talk us through the SBA's Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP program. Just by way of background, for those who aren't familiar with PIDC, we are Philadelphia's economic development organization dedicated to driving growth to every corner of the city of Philadelphia, and we mean it. We have loans in almost every single zip code. We work with the smallest of the small businesses in both the for-profit and the nonprofit world, all the way to the middle and largest of the city. We are here in order to support the business community and to be a trusted advisor. We all know the hard work that you and your businesses have been going through in this COVID environment. We've all been living through it together, and we're going to pull through it together. There have been a variety of emergency business relief programs at the city, the state, and the federal level. We're here today to talk about the federal level's reaction, and in particular, the Small Business Administration, the SBA, has announced it is opening up a second round of applications for its PPP program. And like I said, we're really thrilled to be joined by Constance Anderson. Constance is with Lendistry. Like PIDC, Lendistry is a fellow CDFI, a community development finance institution, and it has dedicated itself to providing economic opportunities and progressive growth for small businesses in underserved communities. So it's a perfect match for us. Constance is the president for the Center for Strategic Economic Studies and Institutional Development, and brings with her 20 years, over 20 years of banking experience to this. So with no further ado, I want to turn it over to Constance and encourage you all to use the chat room to ask your questions. And given that we have a relatively small audience at this point, hopefully you can get that hand holding that so many of us, I think, need as we walk through this program. So thank you very much for joining. We appreciate it. And Constance, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First, I'd like to just thank Marla, Sam, and Quinn for making this opportunity available. And I'll just go right into the program. We want to make sure that as many small, minority, women-owned businesses as possible have all of the resources that are needed in order for them to apply and be successful in receiving the PPP program. Thank you, Marla, for that. I stole that from you. I've never said PPP before. What we're going to do now is go through the loan application process, and that will be on slide 2. And slide 2 basically takes you into the actual understanding of what you're going to need in order to apply for these funds. So you're going to have to look at your payroll documentation. And so in summary, I will go through each area with you guys. And so basically what we're going to be looking at is your 12-month payroll summary, including wages and state taxes paid. Keeping in mind the Payroll Protection Program was designed specifically to help small businesses to be able to keep their employees in place. So when we're looking at this, or when the SBA is looking at this, we're looking at your 12 months of payroll for 2018, your Schedule C for 2019, in the essence that you do not have your 2019 tax returns completed yet. There is no requirement that you provide your 2019 tax returns, so the Schedule C is something that we can use in place of that. We're also going to be looking at, or you should be thinking about providing us with your health insurance benefits that whereas you are paying for on behalf of your employee, any benefits that are connected to the payroll. So if you pay bonuses, if you're paying retirement, if you're paying medical insurance, any benefits that are connected with your payroll, you're eligible to include that in your actual payroll documentation. In some cases, you will have an actual payroll company that you use. It usually only takes a minute for those organizations to provide you with a summary of your payroll. In instances where you do not have a payroll organization helping you with payroll, we are also going to be looking at your 940 and your 941, which is part of your IRS documentation that you provide monthly. And in most cases, that's provided to you on a quarterly basis, so you should have that report available as well. For sole proprietors, we're going to be looking at your 1099 plus your proof of payroll record. And in that case, what we're looking for is how much the sole proprietor has paid themselves. If you are a corporation, we're going to be looking at your articles of incorporation and your fictitious name filing statement. Articles of incorporation should include operating agreement, fictitious business name, your fictitious business name and partnership agreement, and specifically making sure that that fictitious name statement has your name exactly the same as it is in the other documents that you're providing. One of the reasons why you want to make sure that all of those documents are good and they read exactly the same, it causes a delay in the processing. And I think right now, most of us are trying very hard to get these applications done as fast as we can. So in a lot of cases, we do not have an opportunity to make a phone call to ask for additional documents, or when we look at the application, we notice the application, there's initials missing, or there may be boxes that are not checked. So in that instance, I'm going to ask you to ask your members and constituents to take their time and complete the application to the best of their ability. There's a couple of applications out there. The application that should be used for this process is the application form, SBA form number 2483. It has an addendum A and B, and there's an additional owner's document attached to it for any owner of 20% or more. And we'll also need the last year's tax returns, which I mentioned earlier. Next slide. If you're a sole proprietor, we've broken that down as well to help you in complying with the documentation requirements for a sole proprietor. You will find all of these documents on our website, which is www.mylendistry.com, and we'll put that in the chat line for those of you that didn't get it. On our website at mylendistry.com, you will also find an SBA PPP loan resource guide. That guide will help you to complete the documents. It'll answer almost any question that you have. The emphasis that I'd like to make right now is making sure that along with applying for the PPP program, you can include other expenses like rent, interest on a mortgage payment, utilities. 75% of your PPP dollars should be spent on payroll. They're allowing 25% to be used for other expenses. If you use those expenses exactly as you should use them, along with using the payroll, all of these funds could be forgiven. And that's the other section, that's section 2 in the resource guide. And it goes into detail as to how your lender will go about making sure that loan can be forgiven. If any of the proceeds cannot be forgiven, you will then have what we call a term loan that is payable at 1% interest over a 2-year period. For example, if you were to apply for $250,000 in the PPP program, and we assessed and reviewed how you used those funds, and for instance, you had $100,000 left over that you did not use for payroll, rent, utilities, etc., then now you have a $100,000 term loan due and payable in 2 years at 1%. What I want to emphasize is 1% is pretty cheap interest, but paying off $100,000 in 2 years is a $4,113 payment per month, which can be a very big hardship for the average small business. So we want to pay attention to that. We have small business advisors available. I'm sure the individuals or the organizations on this call also has people that can help you with it, but we're available as well. The next portion talks about how much you can borrow. And I sort of alluded to this earlier. You want to calculate over 1 year what your average monthly payroll cost is. For instance, over 12 months, you could have a payroll of $120,000. We would take 2 months of that, which would be $10,000 per month, times 2, which is $20,000. Your maximum loan amount is 2.5 times that. Okay? So that's explained even more on our website as well. But basically, we're looking for the average 2 months of payroll and multiplying that by 2.5 times. And that is the amount of funding that you're available to get in the PPP program. We've also detailed what those salaries, what's included in the payroll for salary as well on our website. So again, it's salary, wages, and other compensation that's paid in cash with tips and so forth. And there's other areas there too that you might want to just look at. Benefits, like I said before, benefits includes insurance premiums, retirement, any taxes that your employer pays, or the employer pays. Let's see. Are there any questions so far? I don't see the chat line, so I'm not sure if there are any questions so far.
No one has raised their hand yet.
Okay, thanks, Quinn. So we're going to move right into the application. And you will notice at the top of the application, there's been 3 or 4 revisions to the SBA application since this started. You want to make sure you're using this application. And the first thing you will notice is at the top, you get to check off what type of business you are or what type of entity you are, and you'll fill that out. Also in this, you will notice that, additional owners of 20% or more, you need to list those. And there's also a certification piece of this application that those individuals would need to sign and complete as well. Questions must be answered no based on the owners. If yes, an addendum is required. That's in under the question section on the first page of the application. The second part of the application, you will note, ask other questions, and be careful in answering those, and make sure that you're initialing and answering every box. You don't want your application to be delayed. Paycheck Protection Borrower Application Form. This is on page 6, I believe. I can't see that number and I don't remember it. There is a certification piece on the application. Read it carefully, make the initials, make sure you don't miss any of the initials. You're certifying basically that the information that you're giving us is correct, and make sure that all parties sign this document. If there are more owners, they will need to complete this part individually. Okay. All right.
Constant,
Step one. Yes.
I'm on a slide that says who can apply.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the correct slide? Okay.
Well, I've actually gone past that one, but that's fine.
Okay. I'll advance forward.
No worries. No worries. Was there any hands up?
No hands yet.
Okay. All right. So step one is the slide that has the contact details, information that's needed. This is now you completed your application and you're ready to submit it. So apply now is the slide that you should be on, Quinn.
Okay. This loan will be forgiven. Submitting your PP application with Lendistry. Accessing Lendistry.
Mm-hmm.
Three-step pop.
Okay, I'm looking at your slides now, so we're on the same page.
Okay.
Mine are just a little bit more detail.
Okay.
Okay, so are you on Paycheck Protection Financial Data?
Did I pass that? What page is that?
Keep going. You're almost there.
Yep.
Okay, there you go. This page. And I like to spend a lot of time here because of the financial information might be, other than the application, one of the more important pieces of the application process. So here we go into detail as to what we're going to be looking at to help you to determine how much funding you can get under this program. As I mentioned before, that in some cases the employer has a payroll organization. If you don't have that, you probably have an invoice for the fees that you pay on behalf of the employee. For instance, documentation reflecting the health insurance premium that you pay. More than likely, you're getting a copy every year, or at minimum, you're getting an invoice on a monthly basis that shows that you're paying for a number of employees to have health insurance. That is covered under the PPP program, so you want to gather that. Retirement is the same. For instance, if Merrill Lynch, and I'm just throwing that out there, is covering your retirement plan for your employees, every year you get a statement that says what you paid, and monthly you should be getting an invoice. That information would be very helpful. Next slide. Okay, this, again, a lot of this is pretty self-explanatory within our website. Everything that you're looking at now is available to you on the website, and it's designed to help you to get through this a little bit faster. So this lists the documents that you're going to need in order to upload and get your application to get to the review process. I don't think I need to go into this anymore. You do need a copy of your photo ID. We talked about the corporate documents. We talked about financials, tax returns, and so forth. And now that we have the approval to work with sole proprietors, the documentation needed for independent contractors, sole proprietors, anyone using a 1099, those are individuals that are considered sole proprietors, and now you can apply. You would now go ahead and download or upload your information into the Lendistry portal. Next page. We're back at the application again. So basically that covers how things work within the portal. Keeping in mind, I think the most important thing is to definitely apply for the funds and get the funds, but also keep in mind, I think that in most cases we would like this loan to be looked at as forgivable. And on or about June 30th, you will have an opportunity, depending on when you receive the funds, you will have an opportunity to ask for forgiveness from your lender. And the documentation as to how you use those funds becomes very important. That's it for me. We can go to the next PDF, which goes into how we go through the process when.
Before we do that, Vincent Lane has a question here. I'm going to unmute him.
Sure.
Vincent, are you ready to ask your question? Can you unmute him?
Okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, how are you? So here's my question. I've done this process in that first round, but the lender I did it through, which was my own bank, at the last minute dropped the ball and said, you know, then the money was gone. My question to you is I'm an alum of Goldman Sachs. I feel like I would have a better chance putting my paperwork through Lendistry. What do you feel? What do you think in reference to me taking actions in reference to moving what it is I had over at another facility, which was not my lender, and putting all my information, which is gathered and all in order, into Lendistry? Because I know you say do not duplicate the process, but I feel like me going through the other entities didn't get it done.
Okay, well, my suggestion is now for convenience purposes, I would, if I were you, I would check with the bank and see if they're getting some of the funding, which I'm sure they are, and maybe they are, maybe they're not. I really don't know if financial institutions are going to get additional funding. If they're not going to get additional funding, we would definitely like you to apply with us. But for convenience sake, if they are going to drop you, you can certainly apply with us because it sounds like you've got all your documentation ready. So it would be maybe a 5 or 10 minute process. We welcome the opportunity to support you.
Yeah, I kind of think, well, you know, they haven't dropped me. They both said that my bank and the other bank, I didn't want to mention any names, but they both said that, hey, we're going to put you through the second round. But, you know, I'd like to feel like I'm, getting some preferential treatment.
The only time you really have a problem with multiple applications out there is that at some point you're going to have multiple SBA numbers. That's what you don't want.
Okay.
Because neither lender will know who's actually going to fund you.
Right. Okay. So.
And you don't want to double dip, as they say.
No, and I don't. And I already have, and when this initially started, just to be real quick, I already have an SBA number because I did it through the SBA by myself. And I was told that it was under review. I hadn't heard anything back, but I was told it was under review. So I guess I'm in a little sticky situation here, huh?
Well, I tell you what, why don't you, I'm going to leave my email address. Why don't you, on Monday, we think that we'll know a lot more about how we're moving forward. Okay. And you can find out probably from your institution. Like I said, you have all your documents. You're pretty much ready to go. If they are not going to fund you, I'm sure we'd be happy to try and do that.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Was there another question? No? My computer says that there are 9 questions out there. Huh. Okay, I just didn't want anyone to think I was ignoring them.
Let me, so Oh, we have one raised hand from, sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, Saba. I'm unmuting you.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Can
good,
you-
thank you.
Okay, a couple questions. The SBA loan that we process separately from the PPA, if we don't hear back, what does that mean? And what's the channel of communication for that, just for the SBA portion?
Okay, well, the entire CARES Act, which included the stimulus, the EIDL, and the Triple P program, all three ran out of money.
Got it,
So
okay.
the fact is they're all being replenished in the near future.
Okay,
Rumor has it'll be replenished on Monday. So it could be that they just didn't fund you. It doesn't mean they're not going to. It could have just been that they came to a standstill.
got it, okay. So, and then the other question I had is, so my bank said I was approved for the PPA, but they have not dispersed yet. And they're working through the, I guess, their process with the SBA to confirm that, you know, I guess there's logistical thing that they both have to work together to do that. So my next question is to say, this replenish portion of the money is not for a replenish for the PPA. Is that correct?
No, it's for the whole program, yes.
Okay,
It's there for
Okay.
PP, it's Triple P, PPP, EIDL, and the stimulus.
Got it. So you can only apply for the PPA once, though. That not because, for example, like, you know, using that formula, you can only apply for it once. Correct?
You can apply if you were declined someplace else. If they ran out of money and they can't support you, and or if it's a financial institution that says, okay, we're not going to have the money to do this, then yes, you can apply someplace else.
Got it. Okay. But replenish doesn't mean necessarily if your need was greater than what you were allowed, you can reapply. I just want to make sure that's the clarity here.
Okay, so here's how I'll explain it. They had about $350 billion available. We went through that money. So what they did is they made a phase 2 so that we could fund more businesses. It's not a matter of funding more meaning to individual businesses. It's about making sure that the businesses that are applying have access to it.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And then my last question is, in cases where we have employees in which they've declined to come back, so, and, you know, I decided as a business that I want to ensure that they're compliant with the expectation, so I don't want to have any setback where I'm not accepted in terms of my I guess for the forgivable. So I have basically documentation that says, okay, if you're returning back to work, effective that date of you returning back to work, you cannot no longer apply for unemployment. So I'm requiring that they sign to come back. So my question is, some people are deterred because we're asking them, but I'm hiring in case those people don't come back. So the question that I have is, you know, is there a percentage of your existing employee or, you know, your employee that have to come back, or as long as the money spent on labor, doesn't matter, it's new versus old employee?
It doesn't matter if it's new versus old.
Got it. Okay. Okay. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Okay, we actually have another raised hand from LeMay.
Oh yes, hi. That was a great pronunciation of my name. Kudos. I'm calling from a nonprofit, a community-based CDC, and I was just wondering what I missed the first 10 or 15 minutes of the presentation, but I was wondering if you know, is Lendistry, is this program that you guys are offering and this assistance, is this something that we as community organizations can help promote? And just a follow-up question to that is, do you have any language accessibility for say like Chinese speakers or any non-English speakers?
We have, as a matter of fact, I think we have about 10 different languages on our team, so I don't think you'll have a problem there. I'm not sure what your question was about promoting nonprofits.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant, can we promote Lendistry to our base on
Oh,
as a
absolutely.
resource?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if Constance, if I can just reiterate to everyone who's on the call that Lendistry is the partner with Goldman Sachs in the 10,000 Small Businesses Initiative. And for some of you who know or don't know, Philadelphia was selected as the 9th city back in January of 2013 to be the capital partner with the 10,000 Small Businesses Initiative. So PIDC is a partner with Goldman Sachs and has been for those, I guess, 7 years now, where the business education portion of 10,000 Small Businesses has been delivered through the local community college of Philadelphia. And so to the extent that Goldman Sachs has partnered with Lendistry in helping small businesses access this money, we certainly would encourage you to work with Lendistry. So Lendistry, again, is a lender. It's a small business lender as a community development financial institution, which means it has the ability to lend to small businesses. And PIDC is very familiar with that. We are also what is called a CDFI.
Okay.
Thank you, Marlo.
We don't have any questions at the moment, so we can continue with the slides.
Okay, so the next slide talks about the actual process. Once an application is uploaded, it goes into what we are calling sales and business development review. And at the same time, we're doing the back end, the back office piece of it. So there's no delay there. And then once it's moved from sales, it goes directly into underwriting. If we run into any snags, I'm going to use that word, we would send out an email to the client letting them know what documentation we need. And we are expecting an email back. Expecting us to be able to call you, it might be a bit unrealistic because of the number of people we think we're going to have to work with. If it's anything like what we had on the first round, and I think it's going to be more, then what I'm asking is that those applications and documentation be as complete as possible. And then it moves to underwriting, closing, and funding. And if everything moves smoothly, we usually can get through this in less than a week. You are going to be asked to upload your bank information. This Lendistry is a fintech, a financial development corporation. So we really pride ourselves on how well our technology works, and it should actually speed the process up quite a bit. That's it for that slide. This is just another way to get to the application. It's mylendistry.com. There are, Marla, do you guys have advisors available to help the clients with the actual documentation review?
We do not. What we have been doing is using the SBA resource partners with the Temple University Small Business Development Center and the Women's Business Enterprise Center. So we will make that information available, but it's those two resources. And of course, the local SBA office is available, although I think they are just so overwhelmed that they've been trying to get the SBDCs to take the overflow of those that assistance. But the assistance is available in Philadelphia. and also with the SCORE chapters and the other SBDCs in the area, but specifically in Philadelphia, it's Temple University and the Women's Business Enterprise Center.
Very good. That's excellent. I used to be an SBDC director. So that's all good. I know that they're being helpful. We're hosting a lot of different webinars here. I don't know if they're hosting webinars in Philadelphia, but that might be an opportunity as well. The more you know, the better your application is. Okay. Another way of just making sure that you understand what is needed, how to upload, how to connect into our system, what the review process is. This is just an idea of letting you know again what we need to look at. We are going to be looking at your payroll for the earlier parts of this year, which is January 1st through February 15th. Remember, we need a photo ID, so you're going to copy your ID front and back, and you're going to upload that. You're going to provide your 2019 tax returns if you have them. 2018 is an absolute must if you were in business in 2018. Year-end financials, corporate documents, articles of incorporation, bylaws, operating agreement. Also, keep in mind what we're looking for is definitely the name of the corporation and the articles of incorporation, how it operates, but primarily what we're looking for is who in this corporation is allowed to encumber debt. So that page definitely needs to be there. It usually is, but just to let you know, in some cases we need the 40-page corporate corporation documents and articles of incorporation. And then you just go directly to the PPP application. Do we have another question?
We did, but they put their hand back down.
I hope that's because we've answered the question. Next slide. This is where you would complete. It's another short form.
Constance, we actually have another raised hand now. I'm going to unmute.
Sure.
Go ahead, Kenneth. There you go. You might have to unmute on your end. Kenneth? There you go. Oh, maybe his audio is not working. So he wrote in the chat box, we received a PPP loan. To qualify for forgivable portion besides the 75% payroll, can the 25% be used for 1, supplies, 2, software, 3, vendors, 4, equipment, 5, consultants, 6, company credit card balance?
Okay, good question. Excellent question. And there are 5 ways in which that 25% can be forgiven. It is rent, utilities, interest payment on your mortgage, insurance. Oh, I forgot one. Rent, utilities. So I don't think he listed anything that covers it. Definitely not equipment.
Okay.
And it's also spelled out on our website. I can tell them exactly what page to go to. Or if they want to send me a quick email, we can discuss it and I can help them out as much as I can. You're welcome. Another question?
That's it for now.
Okay. Thanks. So this is a short form application, and this just gives Lendistry a little bit more information, and this goes into our portal, helps us to move along a little bit faster, tells us a little bit about who you are, what type of business you have, and so forth. And this form probably takes about 2 to 3 minutes. Next slide. Okay, I think this one, we got another question. Is that a question?
Yes, in the chat box. So Kim asked, what happens if you click yes on the have you applied somewhere else?
We're going to basically tell you that you should stay with that organization that you've applied with already. On that question, let me just expand that a little bit. The idea is to get as many people paid through the PPP program as possible. So if you have us looking at a package and 2 or 3 other CDFIs are looking at the package, it's kind of like you've got 3 organizations looking at your package versus each of us looking at a different package and getting more funding done. So in our case, we're going to ask you to continue working with the organization you're already working with. Okay. Should I move on?
Yes.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that after taking the application on the portal, these are the processes that are being done. These 2 processes are happening at the exact same time. We look at this as speed is very important in making sure we can get our business owners funded as soon as possible. So these 2 processes are taking at the same time. It does say review credit report. All we're looking at on the credit report is to make sure that you and all of the documents that you're sending to us is exactly the same person. There is no credit required to apply for this, so there's no impact on your credit report.
Constance, will you pull the credit score for the applicant?
We do what's called a soft credit report. And you know what, I'm not sure right off the top of my head because a soft credit report is not something that I see on a regular basis, but it's Lendistry's policy. It's less of a hit on your actual credit score. So there may be a credit score there and there may not be, but keep in mind, the credit score does not impact you qualifying for this program.
One of the things that we were told by the SBA before the programs were closed is that for people who had blocks or locks on their credit, that the SBA would pull some of their credit, so to remove those blocks once they had the application submitted.
Absolutely. Total in agreement. They need to do that. Is there another question?
I don't see any. Should I move to the next slide or stay on this one?
No, let's move ahead. Thank you. This is where we actually go through and help the clients to review what they're answering, how they're answering information on their application. Question 1, yes. These are automatic denials. If you look at this and compare it to the actual application, you will know whether you should proceed. This mentions the CABS report and so forth. Let's see. Secretary of State has to be active, so that's a report that we're going to pull. The loan amounts cannot exceed $250, nor can they be below $10,000. So it's $10,000 to $250,000. Those are the limits that the SBA put on us. Let's see. Business start date early in 12/19. Just more emphasis on what's included in your payroll item. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, now that we have clear guidance and direction on how to process sole proprietors, we've also added that to our website, and I think clearly explain how it all works. You know, you can use bank statements if you don't have a payroll. You can use your profit and loss statement, depending on where you are with filing your tax return. The Schedule C I talked about earlier. The 940 and the 941 we mentioned earlier as well. And also, it's really important that we're able to prove that your business was still in operation on February 15th. February 15th is the date that the SBA gave us in order to help people to apply and understand that the business was in operation. So if your business closed on February 1st, you would not be eligible to apply for these funds. And the February 15th date is for any type of entity applying, not just sole proprietors. Next slide. These are things that we can work with you on, or if you don't need our help, we hope that this will help you to figure out how to do your payroll calculation. What we also like to do is discuss or make sure you understand the forgiveness terms. And so that the bottom line is we would like you to be eligible to have your entire loan forgiven. And so we will provide you with a checklist so that you know how you're supposed to spend the funds and move forward. The last piece is the closing. You will get loan documents via email. You will provide us with your banking, or we will confirm your banking information. The funds will be wired to you directly to your bank account. There are no checks being issued. And that's it. You return the documents and wait. I think it takes us about 24 hours, maybe 40. No, Everett would tell me 72 hours from that time is when you'll get your funding. If not sooner, but not more than 72 hours. Next slide. I think that's it.
That's all we have.
Okay. No more questions?
Constance, thank you so much. So this is it's a stressful time for businesses. Yes. I know I looked on the participants list, and I know there's one business who had a depository relationship with a bank for several years, and the bank would not accept their application because they wanted a business banking relationship. And so the company was able to find another bank. So for anyone on the call who has run into those kinds of problems, we do encourage you to look at Lendistry. Again, Constance, correct me, but I've read that Lendistry is the second largest SBA CDFI lender in the country.
We are.
Yeah, so we're fortunate to have Lendistry on this webinar today as a company that absolutely knows the SBA process and knows how to very expeditiously review the documents and get your application submitted. So if you do not already have a business banking relationship, and you have not yet submitted an application, we highly recommend that you contact Lendistry. We have all of the documents here on this webinar for you to contact Lendistry and make sure you do not miss any time. And at this point, it's Constance, if you would talk about first come, first serve. So whomever gets their application in, the fastest is the one that's going to get serviced.
Absolutely. It's important. Our portals are open. You can apply now. If you're ahead of the game, why not? If you can get in the portal, of course, we ran out of funds before we got all of the applicants funded because of the money. When this money is replenished, and I use the word replenish, when we get the second phase of money, the applicants that are already approved, they're going to be funded, but there should be plenty of money to take in new applications and get those funded as well. So it is first come, first serve. And it is the most completed application that moves through the fastest.
Constance, we have a question from Go for Delivery.
Okay, go for it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Oh, you can hear me? Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I joined late, so I was wondering if you could provide your contact information. If we could follow up like via email if I have some other additional questions or anything like that.
Sure, absolutely. I believe that Marla and the PIDC team is going to make all of my information available. It's also on our website, mylendistry.com.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
The next question is from Vincent Lane.
Hey, Ms. Constance, I have another question for you. Question being, well, not actually a question, just a confirmation. You just said that your site, Lendistry, is open over the weekend. So in essence, I can resubmit right now. Is that correct?
I believe so. I haven't been told otherwise. Yes. We didn't shut down.
Okay.
So we're still looking at applications in hopes that we'll have more than enough money to fund everybody that's in the portal that's approved.
So
our office is moving as if everything is fine.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a question from Kenneth in the chat box. He wrote, my first application was with my business bank, Wells Fargo, but they took too long and claimed they ran out of funds and advised that I seek another institution. So I applied with PayPal that handles my business credit card payments. PayPal approved my PPP loan and deposited the funds. Now my issue is spending it so it will be forgivable. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was a question.
You want me to comment on that? I can. I'm basically, as long as you use the fund for the purpose intended by the SBA, which is payroll, which means however many employees you had prior to February 15th, you need to have the same number of people employed when you ask for forgiveness. Now, if you hire more people and you use more of those funds, then you're definitely in a better chance of getting all of it, 100% forgiven. If you don't use all of the funds for payroll or payroll-related areas, and including the 5 things that I mentioned earlier, rent, utilities, interest on a mortgage payment, insurance, and so forth, then you're looking at the possibility of a certain amount of funds not being forgiven. Those funds that are not forgiven are going to be turned into a term loan at 1% over 2 years.
Constance, I think that is one of the issues that has been so confusing for many small businesses. They hear about the forgivable portion of the PPP program and start applying, but don't take into consideration if any portion of those funds don't meet that 75% payroll usage rule, or no more than 25% for non-payroll usage, that converting that balance into a loan with a 2-year term. I was really happy to hear you talk about what that principal payment could be in a very short term. So can you explain that again, please? Because I think people don't realize what a principal payment can be if it turns into a term loan with such a short repayment period.
Right. And it is a very short repayment period. And I think a lot of times people look at it and say, oh, this is a 1% interest rate, so this is basically a really cheap loan. Well, interest, yes, but the term makes it a little bit more expensive, because there is no exception. Any funds that are not forgiven is going to turn into a term loan over a 2-year period at an interest rate of 1%. But the example I used earlier is $100,000. So let's say, for instance, you were able to get a $200,000 PPP loan. If 75%, let's just say $175,000 was used for, no, let's do the 100,000. Let's just say 100,000 was used for PPP, and now you've got 100,000 that's questionable. If you can't prove that you used that other 100,000 for payroll and those other items that I listed that are on my website, then that amount of money is going to turn into a term loan, and it's only over 2 years. So if it's $100,000 that isn't forgiven, then now you have a $4,113 payment every month for 2 years. And my assumption is most small businesses cannot handle that kind of impact on their cash flow. I hope that was okay, Marla.
No, that's perfect. And one of the things that we've heard is the EIDL loan, the economic injury disaster loan, which is the other product being offered by the SBA. So I've been encouraging our clients and other small businesses to really look at the pros and cons of both programs, because even though the economic injury disaster loan program is not a forgivable loan program, it still is a low interest loan at 3.75% over 30 years. Exactly. Yeah. And so exactly to your point, what you may not be able to manage with a 2-year loan, you've got 30 years to repay this, especially if it takes the economy a period of time to recover, and businesses are looking at recouping 100% of their revenue after these restrictions have lifted. So we are always encouraging companies, yes, there is the forgivable portion with the PPP program, but the term is so short that it is worth a discussion with your financial professional to see if the loan, the economic injury disaster loan, may in the long run be better for you at a 3.75% interest rate over 30 years.
Correct. Absolutely. I think in what I have seen with most of our clients here, and some of them are in other states as well, is that most people are applying for both, mostly because there's the restriction on using the funds under the EIDL is less strenuous, I would say, than the PPP program.
And this is, I am so glad you did those calculations, because that is a part, and we appreciate Lendistry doing that as a CDFI, because most people don't talk about the financial impact in the event the expenses are not approved for the forgivable portion. So thank you so much for giving that calculation, and the what may be forgivable up front could actually be a more onerous burden, financial burden on the small business.
You're right. I mean, I've heard some pretty crazy stories in that I've heard people say, well, some of my employees don't want to come back. The response to that from us should be, as long as you have the number of employees employed, you're fine. If people, this is a horrible situation that we're in, and a lot of people will find employment elsewhere. And they may not be available to come back. There's also a caveat in there that says you cannot decrease your employees' salaries by more than 25%. So, and that came about as a shocker to some people, because they felt like, well, if the business isn't making a lot of money right now, why can't I decrease some of the employees' salaries? Well, they can't do that in this program. They can, but they can't exceed 25%.
Well, it is 7:01, and we don't want to hold anybody. We are going to repeat this on tomorrow. Candace, this has been, it's been exceptional. You've been very patient in explaining the program. This is one of the best explanations that we've received. And so what it really speaks to is your experience as a CDFI lender working with small businesses. So we really appreciate your time and your patience with the attendees. So I just want to say to the attendees, thank you so much. We apologize for getting this information about the webinar in such short notice, but once we heard that the program would probably open, and now it has been confirmed that the program will reopen on this Monday at 10:30, we wanted to make sure you had the information that you need to get your documents together over the weekend, because on Monday at 10:30, the floodgates are going to open. And we just want to make sure that you don't miss an opportunity to participate in this PPP program during this next round. So if there's another question that you have, jot it down. Please talk to your network to let them know that PIDC is holding these webinars over the weekend, both Saturday from 6 till 7 and on Sunday from 6 till 7, to try to get you prepared for Monday morning. So with that, thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, stay dry, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Constance. Thank you, Jasmine, and thank you.
You're very welcome. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Gwen, I'll need you tomorrow.
Sounds great. Talk then. Have a good night.
Good night.